Welcome to the Industry Trends and Insights Show, a reliability radio series with your host, Bob Francis, Research and Strategy Leader at Reliability Web. Each episode is designed to bring you key findings from the Industry Trends and Insights Research Program, interviews with leaders in the community, and the latest innovations shaping maintenance, reliability, and asset management. Now, here's today's episode.
Hello again, it's Bob Francis from Reliability Web and Reliability Radio. This is our latest episode of Industry Trends and Insights. Joining us today, Joe Nichols, VP of Product. He owns the Operate portfolio at Octave. We are coming to you from Austin, Texas, where the Octave On Tour event is happening this week. Joe, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Great to be here, Bob. Great to have a chat with you today.
And Joe, I think one of the things the Reliability Web audience and all of the members of the Association for Asset Management Professionals in the design, build, operate, protect. Let's start there. I think most of our audience gets and grew up in reliability and maintenance and understands design for reliability, build for reliability, operate. On that protect side, that might be new to some of our audience. So what is a use case or a scenario where that fourth domain of the Octave product family comes back and interconnects, and there's data leveraging, and especially in the age of AI where instant notification and automation or even autonomous, what is that connection point with the protect domain?
Sure. Well, maybe about what I could do is to start by briefly describing what Operate and Protect does mean to us. And so our Operate portfolio is what most of our audience here probably is very familiar with. How do you manage assets? How do you operate them? How do you have the right people at the right place at the right time? And of course, our Protect portfolio is really all about safety and security. So some of the biggest municipalities in the world use our 911 call center to dispatch either secure or fire and medical response forces. So we've been having some really interesting dialogue with customers that are joining us on a journey for higher levels of situational awareness as they operate a plant. And one of the big scenarios that keeps coming to the table is people that are operating hazardous assets in remote locations where you can detect that something's gone wrong. Detection of a gas leak, detection of potentially a fire scenario, detection of an incident that requires automated rapid response from a local fire response agency. And so we have customers pretty interested in trying to figure out with us, how do we do automated dispatch and response when we detect a significant event that has occurred and requires that sort of response either from a fire or medical perspective, saving critical time rather than asking someone to call, find something and do automated dispatch on that. So there's a high connection point around that idea of I've detected something, it's a problem, it needs immediate response. There's no question about that. How do I get medical and fire response there as quickly as possible with no delay? So that is one of the key elements within that. One of the other things we're exploring there, Bob, which is pretty interesting, is part of that Protect portfolio is security surveillance. And as we are starting to see more use of hardware and cameras inside of facilities and environments, we see a connection point for customers in the future where we are looking to be able to detect when people might be entering into unsafe scenarios. And so our camera systems in the Protect portfolio are really good about ring fencing areas or places where people shouldn't be. And we see a great opportunity as that becomes a little bit more prevalent around, say, substations or rail stations, where we can start to detect the movement of people from an operations perspective as we're monitoring them and managing them in our Operate portfolio, and start connecting that into these video feeds to provide early warning, early understanding that somebody may be entering into a hazardous area that they're not supposed to at this point in time. A little bit more futuristic because of the camera angle aspects of those, but we have started to explore that with certain customers. So a couple use cases there on how we see intersections between those two product portfolios here at Octave.
Right. So in the presentation, starting with Matthias and then through Jay and then through you, there was that consistent thread yesterday of sort of the entire asset lifecycle and the context of the data that runs across all four of the domains as Octave has defined them. And I think our audience is really curious because I was just at a different industry event last week, and there's a lot of talk about the integrated approach and the necessity for data in context that can be shared across all these different applications. But we all know the reality. You and I have lived it for over 20 years. People have some point solutions that have this database and that database, some of which may not be the cleanest, most reliable data. How are you advising your customers to take on this journey and try to put in context for them the importance of context, and not coming in telling them they have to get rid of this and that, but that you can take advantage of even some of these point solution databases for certain functions?
So even within the Operate portfolio here at Octave, we are a assembly of several acquisitions of what I would consider best in breed applications for enterprise asset management, APM, asset performance management, operations management, operating procedures. So even in our world, we have quote unquote what you would see as point solutions that by design that were there. And they're by design because we do want them to interact with the rest of the ecosystem that's out there, whether it's another EAM system, another round system, that sort of thing. So we're promoting a very open kind of model. We would love for people to use our solutions, but we recognize we can't displace those. So that's the foundation that we're working from, which is also the foundation in the reality of our customers at the end of the day.
Right.
So what we see is an ability to bring those data sets together and then create an ontology around that. So the challenge with multiple point solutions is you've got multiple definitions of an asset. You've got multiple definitions on what a failure is. You've got multiple definitions on what risk could be. And the beauty of these new technologies, such as knowledge graphs and ontologies, is they're not a relational database. They're a broader database that understands the relationships and context between all of these things that might have different associations with one another. So we are super excited, not only because we are building that ontology on top of our solutions, common definition of an asset, common definition of a material item, common definition of what a work order is, common definition of risk. We see that being able to plug into the customer's same reality that they have out there. So once you bring that data together, you get those relationships mapped, you get everything on a common definition. That's how you enable large language models today to be able to open up all these new insights that you haven't had before. So I think having been through this, to your point, Bob, 20 years ago, the answer 10 years ago was integrate it all into a data lake. That helped to standardize at least some level of the data models, but that didn't necessarily unlock all the relationships. Knowledge graphs do that. It's a great technology that will really unlock that. And it really sets up a lot of AI-based capabilities to go through and discover new relationships, new insights that haven't been either discovered before, or just extremely hard for a reliability engineer at the end of the day to go find all the correlations of things out there. The model knows it, and you just ask it the question, and it'll tell you if it has the answer. So it's a really cool time to be in technology where you can apply these architectures to solve these long-standing problems that have been out there.
And this is where AI, if done correctly, can really be an advantage, can really be a support tool that helps enable, especially context around a lot of these data sets. If we go in the Wayback Machine, Joe, 2006, 2007, you and I visited a few customers, and the first word that I heard was, as great as your Meridian platform is, our data sitting in SAP or our EM and CMMS system is so bad. No sense could be made of that. You guys aren't going to predict anything. You're not going to give me any insights because the data is absolute garbage.
That's right.
Some of that, I'm sure you still hear that in with some customers today. So what's the answer? What do you guys bring into the table to help a customer is probably under pressure from management? Hey, let's not get left behind here. AI should be a competitive advantage, but they're realizing AI, structured data, no data governance, bias in the data actually hurts them and sets back their program. It
does. Yeah. So the bias can hallucinate. The bias can send you down another path. So AI is not it needs a solid foundation at the base of it. So
AI is dumb until an expert trains it.
That's right. So and look, the data problem is not solved, and it will continue to be an issue to manage. And so one of the things that we are now investing in pretty heavily is how do you actually, a lot of our customers have 10, 20, 30, even 40 years of work history data. They've been collecting work order data and work history data through various mechanisms for a very long time. And they see value or gold inside of that data so that we can use these advanced models to unlock that. So we are spending a lot of time now and have applications we're developing that are monitoring and watching the work history data. And in bulk, we can now take a look at how does work order descriptions, how does the existing data inside of work orders, how can you reclassify that against known standards like coding techniques for activity type for ISO 14224. And so what we're doing effectively now is we're pointing large language models at large work order data sets. And we are using classifiers to help customers reclassify information against standard activity types, against industry standard definitions of failure modes, and even taking the next step of predicting with a level of confidence that we can tell this particular record is a failure and not a failure. And giving some really, really tight data quality indexes around that data and giving some very good confidence levels based upon what we're seeing in the textual data that we have 98% confidence this is a failure. Would you like to click the failure or breakdown flag on? So that is a mechanism that we are now deploying against these work histories that are out there, which is absolutely one of the most important things for a reliability engineer to be able to grab and use confidently moving. And we're seeing 20, 30, 40% cleansing from things that were identified by the model as potential failures that were validated by the engineers as actual failures. So imagine, use the number 30%. Imagine having a 30% addition of failure sets on top of MTBF calculations you were already doing that weren't including that. It does shift the curve quite a bit, and it does shift the decision-making quite a bit. That's the other beauty of AI is, we tend to focus on all these agentic things and all these nice big insights and chatbots that kind of give you these great answers, but you can also point it at the data to clean the data to make all of that better downstream. So it's a huge emphasis for us. And it's a problem that we don't see going away. And so one of the things, just another element there, so I was just describing this process of how do you cleanse all of that historical data. But there are some techniques now that we believe at the time of order closure and order management, where we can help people predict and understand that this is what you should be filling out and classifying as the failure mode, et cetera, after they put in some basic information about the observation of the equipment. So more ways to do it on the front end during work order closure so that you're getting it from day one. And of course, ways to go back on that 20, 30 years of history and getting that in a better shape for better analytics moving forward.
This is great. And I think a lot of the audience really identifies with this challenge and problem. In our industry trends and insights research, one of the questions that we ask every year in our survey is, what's your level of trust of your asset data that you are making decisions by? And in 2024, it was, about 60% on average. Only, 7 to 8% had a 90 to 100 trust level. That jumped up in 2025, about 12%, but then it's taken a surprising, to me, decline. It's already down 9 points across our survey population. And these are, this is 300 plus people who are frontline maintenance technicians, reliability engineers. They have a role that they have an informed opinion. And in doing some follow-up calls, what I've discovered in many of these cases is management pushed the organization to deploy AI something before they went through this process that you're describing. And what's happened is it's broken trust. You now have frontline personnel that are, calling out the AI saying that's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's going to take them a while to win back that trust. Sounds like you guys have got a line on that.
We do. And look, most of us probably have used ChatGPT. We've gotten it to give us some prescriptive answer. And then we ask it, well, how did you come to that conclusion? And then we're like, you're kind of let down. You're like, oh, well, wait a minute. That's not what I thought it was going. So this trust of the data is super important. And so this kind of comes back to one of our core principles today as we look at AI is we see human in the loop as a key construct for anything. And so to your point on confidence, actual confidence on the data models, this application that we've developed that helps with the work order cleanup, it is absolutely a human in the loop, but it's a human in the loop at batch mass scale. In other words, we are having humans verify the model and the technique that it used to get to the classification of a failure, so that they push the button and say, yes, reclassify these 3,000 orders because I can tell that the annual PM description tells me, based upon my work practice, that was never a failure. And they have direct control of that reclassification. And then, of course, we've got scoring indexes that actually show them the movement of what we call a data quality index from, say, 60% to 70%. So they're in the loop making those determinations and can come out of that process highly confident that, okay, I know what that model did. I actually moved it through the approval process, and now I can go back to the organization with some trust that you now are in a much better position to use this data and get better answers.
Joe, speaking of trust, at dinner last night with your CMO, we had this conversation, a hilarious time, but we're talking about the rebranding.
Yep.
And, there's always going to be some laggards out there that don't come along on the journey. How do you feel this event has gone here in Austin? And I guess what I'm drilling into is the existing customer base and your steps, processes of not just the rebranding and the name change. It used to be Hexagon EAM. Now it's Attune. There will be those that get on the train and, they don't care what it's called. They just want to know it works.
Yep.
And it's delivering value. But this is the first of, I think, 5 of these type of events. How are we bringing people along? How do you feel about the existing customer base?
Sure. So let's move. Rebranding is one aspect I could come back to, but let's move into a discussion about why we did Octave in the first point.
Great.
So, as everyone may know, we were Hexagon with a great portfolio of software assets that were distributed across 5 kind of major business units. And we made a strategic decision that if we want to be a pure play, innovative software company that takes advantage of this AI revolution, we've got to bring all of those best of breed software applications that were sitting inside of all these 5 major business units of Hexagon into a common construct for a different capitalization and investment model and a very different innovation model. So that was the intent at the end of the day. Allow us to have a capital base and investment base and an ability to completely shift the thinking of innovation and solving our customer problems. So that's the core of what Octave is really, really all about. Of course, the branding comes with that. So we are working through a process with the customers, this week, as we know, just explaining to them why we are building this unified portfolio and rebranding it in a way that's very, very consistent and easy to kind of come along in the process. But what's really interesting is some people don't like it. Some people like it, to your point, some come along and don't come along. But what we're doing this week and the feedback we're already getting is that the vision that we've established, the innovation models that we're putting in place to create that unified data model, really focused on getting intelligence out of context in the industrial context and providing new agentic workflows that connect these streams together that open up completely new value streams that we could certainly talk about as you're interested in. They're quickly moving beyond the rebrand and now seeing this is actually a very, very different business moving forward that is hyper-focused on our customer problems and how new techniques can solve those problems in very different ways. And so they're super excited. And so my prediction is the ones that may not like, what used to be Hexagon EAM, which is now Attune EAM, they're going to quickly forget about that because they're going to see these great agentic planning and scheduling engines that we're now building that solve a completely different problem that they couldn't when it was Hexagon EAM. So the rebrand's one part of it, but we see the innovation cycles and the change in our investment cycles as the key part that keeps the customers coming along.
As it always has been in the software business, you're delivering value and you're innovating with the customer to move them forward, or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're at risk of being displaced.
That's right. And Bob, we also talked a little bit about this whole AI has just changed everything in the last 6 to 12 months, as we all know, but it's fundamentally shifted our internal innovation cycles. So things that would take me months to sit down with a customer, understand their problem, the job to be done, the value that comes from that, and the feedback cycles around that. We're doing this in days now. We are sitting down with customers. They're explaining to us what they haven't been able to achieve and what in a various aspect. And we're able to do rapid innovation cycles, rapid prototyping, engage with them on an application in a couple of hours and say, would this solve the problem? No, why don't you think about how the workflow could look like this? And we make that adjustment on the fly in a vibe coding method. And they then instantly see us really coming together on, you did solve the problem and that is the way you need to do it. And yes, I would like to come on this journey with you guys to do that. So the internal productivity that we're getting with AI, so you got these AI tools that help the customer solve problems, but the internal productivity we're getting, because we've embraced it so heavily, is quite interesting to say the least.
Right. Well, that's a great place for us to wrap up this episode of Industry Trends and Insights. Joe, great spending time with you this week, and especially great having you here on the program. You can look forward to more appearances from Joe and his team as we continue to bring the Reliability Web audience and the Association for Asset Management Professionals what's happening out in industry. A lot of customers here this week talking about how they're working with Octave to overcome some really big challenges, and they're seeing the value as Joe just described. We'll cover that here on Reliability Radio. Until next time, Joe, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you for tuning in to the Industry Trends and Insights Show on Reliability Radio with your host, Bob Francis, Research and Strategy Leader at Reliability Web. This series is produced to bring you the latest research findings and innovations impacting the maintenance, reliability, and asset management community. For all episodes, research reports, and more insights, visit reliabilityweb.com or find the show on your favorite podcasting platform. And remember, leaders lead. Stay ahead of the curve, and we'll catch you next time on the Industry Trends and Insights Show.